Okay. Good evening and welcome to the March 7th meeting of the governing body. Call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilwoman Nager, who will provide the invocation, stand as you are able and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you all join me in an attitude of meditation. This is in celebration of International Women's Day, which is tomorrow. Bless all women who daily strive to bring peace to their communities, their homes, and their hearts. Give them strength to continue to turn swords into plowshares. We pray for all women who face prejudice, inequality, and gender disparities. Help us to see and to face the discrimination against women in all the many forms it may take. Comfort all women who suffer from the pain of war, violence, and abuse. Help them to become instruments of their own reconciliation and peace. Forgive all women and men who let the differences between us breed hate and discrimination. Let your example of valuing all creation help us to see that we are equal partners in the stewardship of your world. Comfort all women who struggle in the darkness of abuse, poverty, and loneliness. May we stand with them in light to acknowledge their suffering and strive to remove the burdens of shame or embarrassment. We pray for all women who live in fear of their husbands, fathers, and the forces that control their lives. Help them to be empowered by their true selves through your everlasting love and faith. We pray for all women who live in the despair, We pray for all women who live in the despair of poverty, violence, trafficking, slavery, and abuse. May the light of your love bring them hope. Lord, make us instruments of peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is division, unity. Where there is untruth, truth. Where there is doubt, true faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is sadness, new joy. Help us to see the strength and goodness in all women and men. Transform our hearts to celebrate the love and grace of all people. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move on to the first agenda item, roll call.
Mayor Padilla,
Here.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Here.
Valdivia Acala,
Here.
Ortiz,
Here.
Emerson,
Here.
Kale,
Here.
Nager,
Here.
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Here.
and Hofer.
Here.
We have 10 present.
Okay, move on to agenda item number 2, the appointments. Clerk, will you please read?
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Rochelle Hawkinson Penny to the Civil Service Commission to fill an unexpired term ending March 14, 2027.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation for appointment. Is there a motion? Motion to approve by Councilman Duncan, second by Councilman Kell. Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion's carried. I'd like to recognize Mr. Rachel Hawkinson Penny, who is in the audience. If I can ask you to stand, please, so we can thank you for your willingness to step forward and serve the city on the Civil Service Commission. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, if the clerk will read.
A is a resolution introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade authorizing the City of Topeka's participation in the Kansas Municipal Investment Pool and authorizing signatories and rescinding City of Topeka Resolution 9360. B is a resolution introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade naming banks and savings institutions that are designated as depositories for all City of Topeka accounts and authorizing signatories and rescinding City of Topeka Resolution 9359. C is approval of a proposed settlement agreement of an auto accident tort claim and release of all potential claims and liens in exchange for $59,377.60. D, our minutes of the special meeting of February 15, 2023, and the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21, 2023, and there are no applications.
Okay, we've heard the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Second.
Second by Councilman Emerson. Call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yep.
Dobler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Motion is carried. And we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Please read.
4 is discussion concerning potential utility rate changes for infrastructure maintenance and investment.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we last visited this topic, I asked for permission from the governing body to spend a little bit of time absorbing input that we've got from the public as well as from the council, and look to find some ways to we could address our water rates, trying to find some efficiencies. Pleased to share with the council tonight the fruits of that exploration. And I think you'll hopefully find that rates are a little less than what we had previously presented in the month of December. With a lot of help from Sylvia Davis's group, we explored several different items. We looked at meter sizes. We previously were running one rate for 1 inch or below. In looking at our assets, we realized that in some of our older neighborhoods and whatnot, that there are some smaller sized meters that we could then use as a different level of service. We've looked at our outside city rates for both residential as well as commercial and industrial. We've looked at our operating expenses and have found $2 million of operational savings as compared to what we had presented to you in December. We are offering and recommending the implementation of a readiness to serve charge. Previously, our customers had a base rate plus consumption rate. The switch to a readiness to serve charge basically means that if you own a property, that you may not be paying for water usage itself, but you are on standby for that service. And so there is a fee for that. It also kicks in stormwater. And so the whole purpose of stormwater is it is runoff going into our systems. And so if you have a house, regardless of who's living in it, you still have that same flow into our systems. So you are causing an impact to what we've got. And accordingly, there will be a fee charged to that. And so instead of a base rate now, you have a readiness to serve charge. We've also looked at low income rates. That was something we heard loud and clear during our public sessions. And so we'll address that here in a few minutes. But we are offering an opportunity to assist those in greatest needs. So if I go to Taylor, let's see how we do this. Go back to that second slide. So just to bring everybody back up to speed, because it's been a couple months since we've talked about this, there are 4 specific reasons as to why we are asking for a rate increase. The rates do expire at the end of this year. Those were passed by the governing body in December of 2019. Obviously, inflation has had a remarkable impact since that period of time. We're seeing overall inflation rates in the 15-16% level when compared to pre-COVID, and that's across all categories. When we look at the cost of chemicals, for example, Freddie, we're looking at about 200% increases in our chemicals. Our cost of lime is up 60%. Obviously, labor's up. Cost of transportation is up. We maintain about $300 million of existing debt in the system. Obviously, we have to service that debt. Regulatory requirements coming from the EPA and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. Those requirements cause us to have to implement upgrades to our system. Those are capital expenses. And then deferred maintenance. Certainly everybody's familiar with the dreaded water main breaks that we've experienced around town, especially over the winter. And so there is a significant amount of deferred maintenance that we've got to catch up on. So in front of you, there are 4 sheets that have yellow headers. And if I look specifically at the impact to residences, and for tonight we'll talk about residential. So the implementation of a 5/8" meter, when I look at it as a 5,000 gallon a month inside city, which it's about a typical household in Topeka. When you look at the impact on this one, as compared to previously proposed, you'll see reductions in 24, 25, and 26. We were previously asking for rate increases of 9.85%. Our request, because of the things we've talked about earlier, get us down into the low 6s, 6.2%, 6.1%, and 6.1%. That represents in 2026 a $6.60 savings as compared to what was proposed in December. So you're talking about $75 a year less is what we're requesting now. That's on a 5/8" meter. If you have a 1" meter, we were able to come close to keeping it flat to December. You do have a slight increase in 2024 of 13.3%, but then we get it down below to 7.7% and 7.7%. Again, that compares to the previous request of 9.85%. If you go to the next slide, for outside city, so we are suggesting the implementation, expanding the differences between inside city and outside city. That same 1" meter outside of the city, you'll see that on the screen right now. You still have with this a savings of, again, close to $75 a year in 2026. For some of our households that are 1 person, 2 persons, it may be some of our elderly, could be some of our lower income, but where we have low water usages, what we wanted to be able to demonstrate here is the impact, instead of 5,000 gallons a month, at 1,500 gallons a month. And so at 1,500 gallons a month, with a 5/8" meter, we were talking previously at the 5,000 gallons for 2023 at about $93 a month. By going down to that 1,500 gallons a month, you're paying a little less than $52. So there is a savings as you conserve water. Same type of savings as compared to December that we previously talked about. You have $1.86 a month in 24, $4 a month in 25, and $6.60 a month less in 2026. So back to that $75 range. And the 1-inch meter at 1,500 gallons a month is basically flat to what we had presented previously. Outside of the city, at 1,500 gallons a month, there is an increase over what we had previously proposed. It's an increase of $3 a month in 24, $1.10 in 25, and a savings of $1.18 a month in 26. Those 8% increases in 25 and 26, again, are less than what we had previously suggested at the 985 level. We're also asking to implement, or I should say expand, rate assistance. Modeled after the Energy LEAP program, what we're proposing here is contributing $500,000 a year into a fund that our friends at CRC would help manage. It is a one-time annual benefit. They would pay off the bill owed at that point in time to a maximum of $300. We're recommending that qualification level be set at 125% of the federal poverty rate, which for most of us doesn't mean a whole lot. So on your screen right now, you'll see that if you are a family of two, at the 125% of poverty rate, that is just a little less than $23,000 a year. If you're a family of five, it's $40,588. So if your income is at that level or below, you would be able to seek assistance over and above than what we have previously granted. And with that, I'm sure there are lots of questions.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Questions from the governing body? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go back to the slide, or let me see, do I have it? How did you come up with the LEAP figure of $300 max?
That is actually a recommendation at CRC when they've looked at the LEAP program as it exists now, and at the bills with our current assistance program that we are helping to pay off. That $300 max looks to be right. In fact, what Betty will tell you is that really the average bill is about $150.
Okay, first of all, they don't do LEAP. LEAP right now is for gas and electricity.
That's correct.
So how are you? I'm just trying to wrap my brain around. How are you looking to measure that with the water? I mean, I don't understand how $300. If somebody's going in to apply and the max they can get is $300, and their bill is, I'm thinking about my bill. Okay, I'm just thinking about my bill. So my bill was $124 this month. So that's only paying for a couple months.
Correct.
And so I know people on LEAP that their bill, they've received $800 and it's paid for almost 6 months or 7 months. And what happens to the franchise money? What are we doing? What will happen with that? Will this be another entity, or will we still have the franchise money is that gonna still continue to be separate?
Yes, ma'am, this is an expansion of that program. So currently, per utility, it's $75.
Right,
And this would take it in expansion, over and above that. Now in theory, you could have a $300 past due bill written off.
I don't understand that figures. I'll have to get with staff, because if my bill's gonna be delinquent and it's gonna take time, $300 to me is not a lot. It's just not, Steve. I can't wrap my brain around it when I'm thinking about my bill, $124.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. The exposure to the city here is $500,000 a year. And so we wanted to put a cap on that exposure. Certainly as a pilot, and not having the historical ability with this particular program, we felt it was necessary to not let this go wide open.
Well, if you're doing that, then I wouldn't compare it to LEAP then. Because I don't know how much money gets put into LEAP, but if they have extra money, they go back and give everybody more money.
My apologies. Really, the comparison to LEAP is just how the qualifications exist, and so it's similar in nature to that program.
Okay, and then my franchise money is only going to go up, because now with your franchise, that would go up how much? Because that's water, or not water, that doesn't include water. I didn't think the franchise, I thought it only included electric, gas. There's one more.
It does include water, ma'am.
It does? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Water and wastewater.
Okay, so then what happens to, okay.
So basically, you have $150 between water and sewer.
Yeah, they get about 160 kickback. That's what they get, is about 160 kickback if they qualify. I get that. So
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
and then we have a water fund that they can also apply for as well.
I'm sorry?
We have a water fund that they can apply for as well. What will happen with that?
I'm asking.
Have we thought about that, and how much money is in that fund, or is that just from people donating, like they're donating to gas and electric?
So Councilwoman, I might be misunderstanding the question. So the 160 that you're familiar with right now between gas and
That's the franchise fee.
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not talking about that no more.
Right, but we offer $150 in water and sewer from the franchise fees. So instead of it being now $150, we're talking about $450 available as assistance to those who qualify.
Okay. Right now, if people need help on their water bill, they can go to the city and ask for help. How much money is in that fund?
The exact dollar amount, ma'am, I'll have to get back to you on, but I can tell you that, again, it's the $150 a year, and we were able in 22 to give to anybody that asked. We had nobody that had asked that didn't get it.
And so we allot up to 100, what you're telling me is we allot up to $152 a year for people that need it?
In the program as it exists in 2023, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's not correct. That can't be correct. Okay. Explain to me about the readiness surcharge again. So you're saying we will get billed for a surcharge that just to be ready,
Yes, ma'am.
but we're not using any services.
You're not consuming any water, that's correct. But it's no different than you have right now on your cable bill or your electric bill or your gas bill. There's a base charge that you're going to pay.
Okay. Let me wrap this around my mind. I may have some more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Kell.
I was gonna leave this for announcement, so I think this is actually a better time. There is a public meeting about this, subject tomorrow here at the Holiday Building, 620 Southeast Madison. And also next Wednesday, both at 5:30, here in the conference room. You can come in person, you can, comment via Facebook Live or submit in advance to the city manager at citymanager@topeka.org. You can attend virtually, and okay. So I just kind of wanted to get that out there. Kind of some follow-up questions to Councilwoman Ortiz. So on this service charge, will this go for any, like, let's say we have an abandoned building?
Yep.
Okay. That's one. And then on the franchise, let's go prior to COVID, on a typical year, let's say. Is there a lot of that left over? Because like she mentioned before, with leave kind of carrying over, anything left over can kind of be redistributed to other people or to the same people over again. Has there been any money left over we could redistribute, like maybe a quarterly or twice a year situation?
No, sir.
Sorry about that.
No, sir.
All right. I think that's all I have for right now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, the goal of the assistance program is not to provide free utilities.
No,
Just
sir,
to
it's not.
provide assistance, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Heller.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions, and since we've been dwelling on the grant program, maybe I'll start there. I'm troubled a little bit, and I haven't thought about it really before on our other programs, but because a water bill for someone who's very, very low income might only be, what I'm seeing here is, let me get these straight, might only be $62 to $70 a month. They would have to be substantially in arrears, which ruins their credit, in order to be able to get the money in the way it's described. I hope that we could, if we want to do this, that we could work out some other way so that they would be, let's say, in the program, and perhaps, I think these programs are paid directly on people's bills instead of to them anyway. If there were a way to have, to get them signed up, and, you know, as long as the water is still on, just keep popping into their account so much a month, but not force them to be 6 months in arrears in order to collect what the maximum that they're due. So I'll just leave that as a comment, unless there's been some discussion about ways to do that. We're not doing them a favor, really, to get them in trouble.
Again, the goal here is to provide some assistance. It's not,
Right.
It's not to pay the bills.
Understood. Okay. I get the tension, you know, if they can pay it, fine, right? Okay. The total other end of the line for the second question is, having been through this before, as most people know, I mean, I've been on this council through 2 water increases, and we didn't raise it enough, and that's why we're looking at this one now. So my question is just, is this enough to get us where we need to be?
If you look at our deferred maintenance, the amount of rate increase that we would have to solve our deferred maintenance issues would be absolutely astronomical. We think that this is a fair ask. We think that this will allow us to operate the utility and provide quality service while trying to make a dent into our deferred maintenance.
Related to that, we have a lot of grants that seem to be coming through the federal government right now. Do we think, what's the expectation that we can maybe offset, not offset the rate increase, but add to what this additional revenue is to get more done?
We are actively applying for grants every day. To this point in time, we have not received anything. Any grant money that that we're aware right now is out there is infrastructure related, and that would go towards deferred maintenance. It does not help rates.
Well, overall it does. I mean, if we're not,
We would have to
Things done.
have,
I'm not asking to reduce the rates, I'm asking to get things done, so understand. I think we need every penny that's in here. I'm worried about cutting it. That's why I asked the question.
yeah, I think is it $90 million just to get to the 150-year replacement cycle? Yeah. So we could get $90 million of grant money to put towards water line replacements, and that would just get us to the 150-year replacement cycle that we're at a minimum trying to get to.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question. I mean, when you look at these numbers, you just kind of gasp. But if we need more than that, then I want to make sure we do it so that we're really on track to taking care of people. I mean, most of us have been in a situation either personally or known somebody. I mean, if there's anything anybody in this town doesn't want, is to have their water shut off or not have any. You know, to have the lines working, to have it turned on in a day if you had it shut off or you're moving. People expect that and they need it in the way things are going today. And I just want to make sure this is a huge thing to have to consider and to have to do, but we can't be the balancing act for everything else, which we've heard a lot of, I know. And I just want to make sure it's enough so to share to my colleagues. That's how I feel about it too. I like the fact that we're building in a safety net for those who really can't do it, but I want to make sure we have enough. Thank you.
Further questions? Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, I'm probably going to set something up. I don't know who you're going to steer me to go over this more in detail, so I don't take up time with the meeting for an understanding. But I did have a couple of questions, a couple of requests. One is to get us all up to speed on the franchise program as a whole. I know we've had presentations on it before, but I'm asking if just maybe to get us all up to speed. I've been under the impression that gas and electric with CRC always went first. That was the money that always that people, were wanting to get the rebate for, or whatever it is, put on their bill. And then I heard that water sometimes year to year had some funds left over. Somehow people just didn't seem to apply for it as much, and that those did not roll over, that the city took those funds back. If I do not remember at this moment how much the whole, program is in bulk, and then how much we divide between those two. And then with I'm looking here, just give me a second. With the increase that you're saying to help of the $300, I thought what I heard you saying to Councilwoman Ortiz is that it would go from that 150 that 160 mark, which is what usually was given out to add an additional $300 on there. And I could be wrong on that. So what I'm asking is if next week or the week after we have a presentation where we are before any of these changes take place, if this is voted in for a franchise fee, and what these changes will be building into the system. I understand what you're saying about the LEAP, because you were just trying to give a comparison about the 125% poverty level, similar to what LEAP does. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, so I got that. And I guess just one more thing, because I don't want to start trying to explain things to my constituents until after I've met with you guys, whoever you want me to meet with. But when we look at like the first page and we see previously proposed, let's look at the 5/8 meter.
Yes, ma'am.
Previously proposed and then new impact. Okay, so previously proposed is all through here and new impact. So just to clarify, let's look at 5/8 meter, 1,500 gallon per month, which is 1 or 2 person household. Previously proposed for 2024, $56.97. Now, new impact in the parentheses is $1.86. So they're actually going to be saving that amount? Is that what that means?
So a couple of lines up from where you're at right now, you'll see
Yes, sir.
$55.11.
Yes, sir.
So your new bill in 24 would be $55.11. That's $1.86 less than what we had asked for in December.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So again, I don't want to belabor things tonight because this is a lot of information, but I will just send you an email and you steer me to who I need to talk to.
Yes, ma'am. And we will make the presentation next week about that program. And I can tell you that we are not pulling that money back that's not spent. It stays in a fund. I just got that from my finance department.
That may have, okay.
But
Well, and I'm just saying that I've talked with Mary Thomas before about it and where she has wanted to keep that money to build up, to build up, to build up. So it may have changed somewhere along the way.
yes, ma'am, that's
Last-
possible. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
last time I talked to her about it was probably about 3 years ago.
Yes,
So
I know
that's-
they have a balance right now.
Yeah, that certainly could be. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Further questions? Councilwoman Ortiz.
I would like to know how much money is in the franchise fee fund for this year?
Give me just a second, ma'am.
And will that be for the next 3 years? The same amount?
Yes, ma'am. That's the plan. We're looking it up right now. I may have to get back to you.
That's fine, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I can tell you, I just got it's just under $175,000.
Do we know how long that money lasts?
Ms. Thomas told me that money got her through 2022 last year, so she did not run out last year.
Did she say how much was left over?
I think she got to the end of it.
Okay. And 175 is slated for 25 and 26.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification, because I want to make sure I don't mistake or misspeak here, of the $175,000 or $174,500, 100 of that is for gas and electric. 74.5 of it is for water and stormwater, or I'm sorry, water and wastewater.
If they pay it, if, some of them might not pay it, some of it, the franchise fee, and I agree, it would be good to educate. The franchise fee is only you only get what you pay for. So if you don't have to pay water, then you don't get water. Let's say all you have to pay is electricity on your, at your apartment, and your water is free, then you can't get water. You can't get a rebate for the water.
That's correct.
You only get what you pay.
Yes, ma'am.
End of that.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay. Steve, did we we changed this. I remember when we changed it. It used to be it was on a meter of how much water we use. That's what you got billed for. Was there any discussion around that? Did that come up? Because people feel like if they get charged for what they use, they feel better about that as opposed to it's got to be between this gallon, and then that's the rate you pay, and then anything over that is between. Was there any discussion on that?
I think we're actually going at actual usage now. So the city did previously, as part of the base rate, included an amount of water. We did switch to a base plus consumption model several years ago, and so you are paying for what you use.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wade, a couple questions here, and I know this isn't stuff you might not have, right? But Ms. Malott probably does.
Yep.
But what do we spend on repairs each year currently on water main repairs? Round numbers. 1.8 million? Okay. And is that amount accelerating, or is it?
Yeah, I say generally it's increasing, but on an annual basis, it depends on the year, on the number
On the
of
weather
waves,
and
yeah.
stuff, okay. In the absence of brakes, I mean, if the system never, if you didn't have brakes, I mean, what is, because, I mean, I'm thinking $1.8 million, although that's a lot of money, but in the whole budget, that's not a lot of money for the department. What would be needed, even in the absence of brakes, what is needed? What increase is needed? And I know that's something you may need to calculate,
In
but
the absence of breaks, we still have to maintain that replacement cycle. We would be putting the money into getting that replacement cycle to the level it needs to be at so that we wouldn't have any breaks.
sure. I wonder though, we're using primarily what the brakes are, cast iron or ductile iron right now. Not a lot of brakes, I guess, in PVC, is there?
I can't speak to that without talking to staff.
I guess my thought is, especially C900 PVC, you guys use, it's thick PVC. I bet it might be a 300-year replacement on it. I don't know.
It's very possible. Obviously, we don't have the information.
Right.
on
In
that.
150
Yeah.
years, you can tell me. Yeah.
We'll
yeah.
meet back here.
We'll meet back here, yes. Our next public meeting will be 150 years on this subject, and we'll, okay, thank you.
Further questions, comment? The city manager, do you feel, just to follow up a little bit on what Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala mentioned, there's an opportunity for, I guess, small group discussion with you and some of the council members who would like to get a bit more clarification or detail, that they could come to you
Yes, sir.
and you could have those
Yes, sir.
without violating anything. And
That's correct.
as far as numbers in the meeting,
That's correct.
I think that opportunity, if it presents itself, if the governing body, it's that chance, I think you'll find that there will be some who take advantage of that.
We will make the time.
So generally speaking, then, if anyone would like to meet with the city manager to get more detail and thoughts on this, when they might have a little bit more time, please let him know. It's an important decision. I do think that Councilwoman Heller raised a point. We're trying to be very thoughtful, careful about how we proceed and the impact it will have on our constituents. But we have to be looking down the road too. If we have to do this every X amount of years, I don't know that that's a good exercise that the city wants to get into. For my part, I really appreciate the different perspective and thoughts that have come to addressing this issue and problem. But when you have a flat tire, you don't put a used tire on there, because you know eventually it's going to go out again. So it's just my thought. I think it'd be good to consider that when we're having those smaller discussions with you, City Manager. Nothing further on this topic? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd be interested in sitting down, and I still want to see a little bit of pro forma. I'd like to see this broken out amongst, what it's costing us for operating, future debt, current debt, future debt, those type of things. So we can sit down and work that out. Quick question, what do we consider inflation right now?
So our CFO pulled that data earlier today. Happy to share with everybody that inflation's gone down a little bit since Christmas, but year over year, we're still looking at high 8s, low 9s. If you looked at anywhere from June through December, we were in the high 8s to low 9s.
You know, I just got my valuation notices, and just like last year, went up 11%. We know sales tax is going up. The dichotomy here is the general fund, even though things are getting more expensive, we're paying more for labor, our revenue goes up accordingly. It's just a function of inflation at this point. Unfortunately, that doesn't help utilities because our rates were set 3 years ago prior to inflation setting in the manner it has. So we're now talking 6%, 7% increases in the face of inflation that's running somewhere around 8%. I think we need a little more discussion. We need a little bit more information because this is one of the biggest votes that we make on this council, and it affects a lot of people. So we need to put the due diligence into it. Having said that, I appreciate the fact that we're getting there. I think we're in the realm of reasonableness now. I will not try to say that again. Thank you. So appreciate the hard work, and looks like we'll be able to get there in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comment? Sure, okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Yep. No, we're none. That's, yeah. Move on to public comment. Have Mr. Kenneth Otten, who signed up. Are you present, sir? Yes. Please come forward. As a reminder, sir, you have 4 minutes to make your statement.
Does this timer start when
It'll start when you start.
I just never done this before, and I
Okay.
saw the 4 minutes.
Green, yellow, and red. Yellow means you got 1 more minute left.
Okay, all right. Basically what I'm here tonight about is, I'm not sure if everyone got the email that I returned as far as when I signed up for the 4 minutes here. If you don't, I apologize for that not getting to you, but it covered several issues that I have going on right now, and I'm not sure that it's totally within Topeka because of several issues that are going on with it. Basically, at one point in time, I had a government phone, and when I got that government phone, within basically a couple of weeks of having that government phone, emails and text messages started becoming missing and being missing for a time period, and then they would come back on my device. And the thing is because of what I know about cell phones, because I've had one since '91, which the Miami Vice block phone was the first phone I ever had. But the thing is it automatically dates that. So if something is removed from your device and it is put back on your device, you cannot backdate the date in which that shows up again on your device. It will show up, say, if it is taken off in January and it has gone off your device until June. Say it's taken off January 2nd and it's put back on June 3rd. There is no way when that email or that text message or anything like that comes back onto your device that can be backlogged to January 2nd. It will automatically show up as June 3rd. The reason why I'm saying this is because my main email account that I have right now, which is the one that I contacted the city council on, and which I started at the Shawnee County Topeka Public Library, within the library, not on my device, because at that point in time I started it in the library. It's like and subsequently because of things coming up missing and an issue with that phone not charging, which I was no longer able to use that phone, I relied solely on the library for email purposes, and obviously I didn't have the telephone because This is 2000, well, at that point it was 22, but still 22 or 23, there are no public phones. So my only way of communication at that point in time was basically email. And it wasn't, even like I said, even though I set up the account there, things started disappearing there at the library. I talked to staff at the library. They said it was a Google thing. I talked to Google. They said it wasn't on their end. But I'm also having the same problem now at a community center, which I'm not at the library anymore. I returned my library card, said I would not be back to the library, even though I'm using a library card, but it is a flat library card that anybody can use, and the only way that those things can be disappearing is I'm logged in on my Google account through that particular thing, and it's the same thing is happening there, which is why I'm bringing the issue up.
Still have a minute, sir.
Oh, okay. I mean, there are issues. I mean, right now I'm homeless, and I have between 3 different financial things that are owed to me. I have the equivalent of basically $9,000 that should be paid to me, but because I cannot guarantee that I'm receiving emails or those are even going out, as well as to the FBI about this, I'm homeless and I have $9,000 that is legitimately owed to me that I cannot get back on my feet with. I mean, it may not be exactly 9, but it's between 8,500 and 9,000. And that's pretty much all I had to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. No other persons have signed up. We'll move to announcements. Madam Clerk?
On the March 14th agenda, we have one presentation from the Topeka Metro Transit Authority for the annual update. On the action items, we have a resolution for a rural housing incentive district application for Miller's Reserve Sub. We also have a resolution amending the CIP to add additional citywide sales tax projects for 2023. We have a resolution amending or approving the 2024 citywide half-cent sales tax and ARPA projects coming out of the Public Infrastructure Committee. And then we have continued discussion on utility rates.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just reminding folks that 5:30 tomorrow night in this room. Anybody has questions on proposed water rate increases, we're happy to answer those questions.
Okay. Move on, Councilwoman Nager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I want to wish a early happy International Women's Day to the women of our governing body, our city staff, and our community. I don't have much more to say because we all know what we go through on a daily basis, and I'm just glad that I'm going through it with all of you. Another thing I want to go ahead and touch on is something that I mentioned last month already, and I already have the card made up, but April 15th is when your taxes are due to the IRS. Please, if you need assistance, please follow up with K-State for free income tax assistance at shawnee.kstate.edu/family finance. Sorry, I couldn't read it backwards. And then the phone number is 785-207-9427. Make sure that you're getting that done ahead of time, because the last thing any of us need is to be handling with the IRS in June, July. Make sure you're getting it done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Dobler?
No comments, thank you.
Councilman Duncan?
Thank you, Mayor. I got a few things this evening. The first is we had a transient guest tax meeting the other day. Just giving the council a heads up that due to changes in one of the projects, there's some money available now to the community or to some maybe past projects that didn't get funds. So the committee's reviewing that, and probably we are not going to make that a long, drawn-out process. We made that very clear in our meeting, but we will at some point, hopefully in the next few months, bring a recommendation to almost $200,000 of transient guest tax money that's now available. So we just want to give everyone an update that that's in the works. We've had several new businesses in my district. In fact, the mayor was at a ribbon cutting the other day for Amanda's Rolls, which is opened up in Fairlawn Plaza. And there's been several others, so it's nice to see some new businesses popping up around the area. If you get up bright and early tomorrow, I'll be on KSNT at 6 something. I don't know. I got to be there at 6:15 and it's on the TV for a few minutes, so who knows what I'll say, but you can tune in and watch that. I'm not going to talk about it because I have a feeling the mayor will, but I was at a very nice event last night honoring students from Topeka High and Highland Park, so I'll just say I was glad I was able to attend and participate in that. My last thing is, and Councilmember Dobler touched on it briefly, is he talked about property taxes, which everybody, as their notices hit the mail this past week, I started getting phone calls and emails just asking, what can the city do? Have you seen this? Have you looked at the increases? And so, once again, as we had this discussion a little bit last year, I just want to make a few comments about it and give you some direction of some things I'd like to bring forward to this body and a request to the city manager here. Last year the average increase in Kansas for 2022 for just the home prices across the state were about 11.9%. If you saw the reporting and the presentation that the county appraiser gave in Shawnee County, the appraisals were about 14% on average. So that's higher than the state average already. Pre-2020, mid-pre-2020, the average increase every year was about 5%. I don't mean in Kansas, I mean the national average of those prices, of those evaluations going up was about 5%. Then we hit what I still think is a bubble. In fact, we know it was because for about 2 years, things got crazy and way out of control. I think at one point that number reached 45% nationally, which is just mind-boggling. However, the last several months of 2022, and as we enter 2023, guess what's happened? We're trending back down into what used to be the average before that in that 4.5% and 5% range. In the last 2 years, however, if you look at what these Shawnee County appraisals were on average, it was about 30% if you put your 2 years together of the last 2 years, which is still above what we saw as it has trended downward. I am not here to blame anybody. I'm not going to say it's the county's fault. I'm not even going to tell you, everybody, that it's the county appraiser's fault. They do have state law that's somewhat strict that they have to follow. However, I'm here to solve a problem. It's causing homeowners an issue, as we know, especially some in certain income brackets, and it's not helping our rental problem on top of that, because rents are going to go up as these valuations go up and individuals' taxes go up. It's easy to say, because I've been that person before, well, it's the county, right? It's the county appraiser and not much we can do about it. But I don't think we're in a position to just shrug our shoulders and say, well, what can we do? I think we do have some responsibility to acknowledge that it's an issue and do our part to find some solutions to the problem. So I'm going to bring 3 here tonight. The first is I would like the city manager to invite the county appraiser to just give us a presentation similar to what they give to the county. I am not here to be hard on the appraiser. I want to have a constructive, positive conversation. Explain to us how this process works. Let us ask some of the questions that give us some better insight. And maybe the appraiser has some things we could be doing, whether it's at the city level, the county level, encouraging with them, or if we've got to go change some state law, then let's go work on that problem. So I do want to, if the appraiser watches this later, know that the invitation is one not to beat up, but to actually have a constructive conversation about the process. The second thing is, and I started this conversation with staff last year, and I'm going to ask that we bring it forward here in the next several months as we get into the budget process. Currently, Kansas has a homestead program that individuals qualify for. The state help pay some of their property tax. Some cities in Kansas, and I would like us to become one of them, if an individual qualifies for that homestead program, I would like us to exempt them from their city property tax. It's already laid out. It's not a huge fiscal note to us, but it certainly assists a lot of homeowners who are low income and just trying to stay in their homes. And the last thing is, and don't worry, I will not this year ask to pass any resolutions prior to the budget process, but you will hear me as we walk through the budget process ask a few times, at least politely, is there any chance we can once again, for a second consecutive year, look at some sort of mill levy decrease to help offset as we get the numbers of what the increases are going to mean to our budget? So we will continue this conversation, but I wanted to put those out into the universe tonight and so we can start, like I said, what I hope is a constructive movement forward, not just complaining about it as we go forward. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hofer.
I have one thing tonight. I wanted to make sure that people, part of them are in my district, part are in District 6, but there is a scheduled water main replacement project on Gage Boulevard coming up, starting at the end of the month. They're going to have a information meeting. The project's going to run from Gage Boulevard to Huntoon. Or I shouldn't say that. From 10th to Huntoon. It is going to run for 6 months. The street is going to be totally closed at one point on one end for a couple of weeks. The rest of the time, there will be access to use it, but it's going to be changing as they move up and down the street. So anyone who lives in the area, anyone who drives on Gage, I'd recommend you go to the meeting. It is on March 23rd at Case Garden by the zoo. City officials, the contractor, anyone who's involved with it, they're going to be there to answer your questions. They will have maps. I've got my handout that outlines the limits of it. Please go and ask your questions instead of on March 27th driving to Gage and saying, what is going on? Find out ahead of time and be prepared, because 6 months is a long time to have your street torn up, and we want to make it as easy as possible for people to get through and know what's going on or shift where they're driving. And I don't know what the status of 12th Street will be at that point, but hopefully more of that will be done so they can get around it. But it is going to be a hardship at some points for the businesses along there. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give credit to, I won't even try and name everybody in the community, but tremendous community activity. My last week plus, has been dizzying in getting to events and watching what's coming by. And I'll just kind of zip through the items. I've never seen Black History Month look the way it has. We had consistent written profiles of people with some photos as well as videos all month long, and that same kind of thing is starting this month for Women's History. Omni Circle opened its co-work space only a week or so ago with a packed house, people literally all chairs full, hanging off the walls and out in the hallway, and it was just a phenomenal event. A group that S.J. Hazim and some others whose names people recognize have formed a program called Authentic Expressions, which it tells stories through spoken word, and they were hosted for Advisors Excel employees last week and did a phenomenal debut job at delivering that way of telling stories for community. Then, let me see, and I got my numbers wrong. Oh, the Women's Forum was well attended. I wasn't there because multiple things are going on at the same time in Topeka these days, but to great acclaim for the women, very multicultural group of women who attended that event. Then a gentleman named James Ree was here, hosted by a couple of different groups, the Greater Topeka Partnership, as well as later a group that was hosting Washburn University in the afternoon, the small business group, and a whole room full of Washburn students. And then the following morning for a minority women entrepreneurs breakfast. He is, you can find a TEDx about him, and he's about to publish a book called Red Helicopter. But he talked about the experience of being basically a super high-end investment banker born of Korean immigrant parents in New York who went to Harvard and various other places, but at sort of a peak of career had an opportunity to help bail out a Black women-owned plus-size fashion industry network, and took 7 years to focus on learning what it was like to help people build a business and sell the financing based on the heart and soul of that business rather than just their balance sheet. And he tells the story far better than I just did. That's a clue. But there were different crowds, students, entrepreneurs from Topeka, again, women, and it was a fascinating experience to listen to him in 3 different venues in Topeka. Follow that with, there was a gentleman who grew up here in Topeka whose family invited him to come and visit because James Rhee was going to be here. Turns out his name is Omar Brownson. We may see more of him. But he, again, Family and Networks was the lead on redeveloping the entire Los Angeles River through the city of Los Angeles, 51 miles, all kinds of developments in recent years. Our Mosaic Partner Pairs program is about to start its 3rd year the end of this week with coaches, support from local businesses and coaches and partners that have developed from Topeka. That's just in a week. I think it's phenomenal, and it's just fun to be seeing Topeka coming together in those ways. Those just happen to be events that First Friday was in the middle of all that too. There's just a lot happening, and it's just exciting, and people in this room have maybe been in part of many of those pieces. Oh, I know I skipped the basketball players recognition as well, which was last night. Our teams from Topeka High and Highland Park High, what they did in standing up to the things that occurred in their basketball games, and B, the fact that they were recognized by community. I just appreciate everybody who's been in part of those events and part of recognizing how great they are. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to mention a couple of things. I'm sure many have been reading in the newspaper about House Bill 2430 that was hearing testimony, opponents and proponents, with having to do with the homelessness crisis across Kansas, whether that be rural Kansas or within the urban areas, et cetera. You know, I would say, and I've been responding to people on it, I'm dubious about it. It's concerning about its passing just because the concern I would have about how it could strip a city of funding if they weren't meeting certain criteria, and not knowing what that kind of bar is that this state bill, if it passes, we would need to meet. At the same time that I say that, I have been talking to quite a few folks in Oakland, and we had a lengthy conversation at an NIA meeting in historic North Topeka West last night about the issue. And again, I'm just going to be saying, in addition to outside, surrounding area, so many folks in North Topeka and Oakland are just at their wits' end about it. I do appreciate city manager, that city attorney sent me an email saying things that were, being worked on. Obviously, the state believes that there can be some kind of restrictions that can be put into place to stop the horrendous spread of the public health crisis, of the trash, of the people that are violating zoning ordinances. It's all getting wrapped up with mental health and addiction, et cetera. But like I've said before, and I'm going to continue to say, addiction and mental illness are not just the realm of the unsheltered. It is the realm of the housed as well. And so again, it's that difference in approach. And I don't want to, we know that we have 2 upcoming events in Oakland, which is going to be German Fest and which will be Fiesta. And, I feel a little bit with Fiesta. I have I haven't asked them if I could speak about this, but having come from a family that was deeply invested in Fiesta for decades, for at least 2 generations, and now that it was hit so bad because of COVID, like so many events were, now that it's going to be coming back this year, full force, with the carnival, with everything. And to think about how we want to attract visitors and how everybody is wanting to let's grow up and do things for Topeka. Just think what these particular neighborhoods have to go through when this traffic is going to be coming in to these events, either through Sardu, whatever way into Oakland, River Road, etc., and to see what we are having to deal with here. And I know that a lot of people probably don't want to hear that, but as someone also that lives about 600 feet from the levee, where all I have to do is walk about 600 feet, walk up the levee, and I can see when fires happen, etc., I am just going to keep bringing this home. I know that EAS is still in its infancy. We also know that it is supposed to house the hardest to shelter, which examples were used. Those would be folks in the encampments, and I would take that to mean the encampment by Denny's as well. And so if they don't want to go, and if we know we have open beds, then we are at a point where we need to figure out what we are going to do. I understand incarceration is not something that I would, that I believe should be a method, especially for those that are mentally ill. And I understand that municipalities are talking about it all over. I would ask city manager for this group that is going to start with this consultant, this group that you want them to come up with innovative, creative answers. And you may be doing this already, but for them not to stay stuck in the bubble of doing all of this within the city. They need city building. They need to come out into the communities where this is happening, and they also need to talk to the folks not only that are in the encampments, but the folks that are having to live within this realm as well. And so I just want to say, as we go into the part of the year where we're going to be having more festivals, is this the look that we want to have for Topeka? And I say that, but I also say it in a way where we have to do something about the mental health and how this impacts our housed community as well as our unhoused community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank a couple staff members, Monique Laude, Braxton Copley, and Sylvia Davis, for answering, and this thank you is long and overdue, for answering my request at 1269 Southeast Republican Avenue on the culvert piping that went in. This lady has called me several times and left messages and wanted to make sure that I personally thank them, and I did want to personally thank them for getting that done. I appreciate that. Their quick response, I didn't even know it was done until I stopped over there to check on it one time. I also wanted to thank Braxton. It seems like he's just for his timely speediness on different requests that get sent in by me, and I just wanted to thank him for taking that challenge on and doing his job when somebody else should have been doing it. And then last, I'll say this for Tony, because I would not say it for me, but I want to congratulate the boys and girls basketball team for Highland Park High School for making it to state, and I hope they make us proud. I hope they make you proud, Tony. And thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Your turn, Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And as you know, as I'm sure you'll agree, it's great to be a Scot. I would just kind of echo what Councilman Duncan. I mean, he kind of works in government, so he says this much more eloquently than I do. Even that word probably better than me. But I kid my wife every year. We get these. I mean, we have several properties and stuff, and we get all these things in the mail. You get a notice, evaluation notice, not a tax bill, but valuation notice. And I always kid Allison that they should have like on there like a almost like publisher clearinghouse, like congratulations, your property's now worth. But of course, we all know what that means. And I will say, I don't think the cost of government should ever increase more than the cost of inflation or than the rate of inflation. I know the deputy mayor earlier talked that one of the things driving this need to raise our utility rates is inflation. But absent, these property values are going up way in excess of inflation right now. So I would sure hope that us, the county, the state, everyone, I guess it's just the county and the city goes off these. But I sure would hope that we adjust our mill levy so that we're not exceeding the rate of inflation when we set it this year. I also wonder, we should have pretty soon coming on, I don't know if everyone else is kind of tracking this, but we have a Mars, Home Depot, Bimbo, a lot of things that should be coming on our tax rolls here in the next, if not next year, then the next few years. Things should start rolling on there, and those each might be a couple mills worth of taxes. So I guess I'm not going to be here next year. So I guess I would hope that maybe even next year, if those come back on, do us all a favor and cut the mill, would you? And lastly, want to end with some good news, just to kind of update what my colleague, Councilwoman Nager said earlier, that this year you have until April 18th to file your taxes. So good news, Topeka. Thanks.
Councilman Kell.
All right. As the councilman and councilwoman said, the Highland Park has qualified for state basketball. The boys are the number one seed in their bracket. The Seaman girls are number one seed in their bracket. So we have state basketball to look forward to also with the HP girls and the Washburn Rural girls have qualified. We did have a couple state champions recently. The boys bowling team for Washburn Rural took first in state, and the girls wrestling for Washburn Rural took first in state. And then in bowling, we had the boys and girls of Seaman took third place in the 5 through 1A division in bowling this last week. And just because I'm not going to be like the former councilman and former interim city manager, Councilman Lester, and interim city manager Cochran, I will be performing this Friday night. The Murder Most Green is held by Positive Connections. It's a murder mystery dinner. You can get on the Positive Connections on Facebook and find their information for that. I have never acted in my life. I fear it greatly, but I thought me and my wife could do something fun and different and exciting in our older age now and expand our horizons. So if you're interested in seeing me make more of a fool of myself than I usually do, please come out to the Positive Connections Murder Mystery. It's called Murder Most Green. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just putting yourself out there, isn't it?
Well, as an interim city manager and the former councilman, I had to find that out and share with our group here when they acted for TPAC, or for the Civic Theater, Topeka Civic Theater, after the fact. So I was going to put it out there early. So
along the lines of Councilwoman Ortiz acknowledgement of good work by staff, I'd like to thank Mr. De La Rosa, our Director of DEI, for taking on a project maybe the first week or so he was here. Very impromptu request by a group of pastors who wanted to address in a positive way the way that the Topeka High School varsity basketball team coaches and trainers responded to attacks on them at a basketball game. I won't go into details. I don't think it's worthy of rehashing. I think the real effort was to raise up our students from USD 501 and to acknowledge that the coaches and the basketball players responded in a very courageous way, restrained way, and a way that we should be proud of in saying that they represent the city of Topeka. It was important for us to be able to do that, they appreciated it. I could see that last night. And we gave them the opportunity also to applaud their parents, because the parents are a part of that whole equation. And so it was an evening that I wish more people could have attended, because I think that's the kind of positivity that we want to see in our youth. And when we talk about our future, we have to encourage them all along the way and not wait till just special events. So I appreciate the work that Mr. De La Rosa did in bringing that together, because I stepped back and gave him the reins, and he ran with them and did an excellent job. So my appreciation for that. I have a couple other things I want to bring up, but I'm going to wait until next week, I think, because it's closer to the events, and I don't want them out there too soon and then they get off your mind and not on your calendar. But I did want to make that acknowledgement for his efforts there. There is a need for one. I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I thought you might bring this up, so I didn't say anything, but since you didn't, just wanted to acknowledge your classy response to the mayor of New York. We obviously won't go into what the mayor of New York said, but I thought your comments represented the values of a Midwest city like Topeka, and was very appreciated. And all I can say is at some point you probably said, "Thank God you didn't make me the mayor of New York." Thank you.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. You know, out of that whole thing, the thing that I contemplate and reflect on is that there has been so much support from this community and citizens, and even the governor. And it has really raised the pride level of our community for Kansas and Topeka in specific. You know, they talk about that net promoter score. It's really jumping up there, because people jump to the defense of not me, but to their community. And that's what I'm really thankful. That's the silver lining of that opportunity. Thank you for mentioning it. To move on, there is a need for one executive session this evening. If the city attorney will read, please.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes for consultation with the city attorney to discuss attorney-client privilege matters regarding a particular contract as justified by KSA 7543-19B2. The open meeting will resume in the Cyrus Holiday first floor conference room. The following staff are required to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Manager Wade, City Attorney Stanley, and other staff he deems necessary.
Okay, you've heard the need for an executive session. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motions for executive session by Councilman Emerson, second from Deputy Mayor Dobler. All those in favor say aye. 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 Those opposed? Thank you. We will, I see you, Councilwoman Ortiz. We will recess into executive session. Give us a quick 5-minute break so that we move into this. Thank you. We're coming out of our executive session. No action has been taken. And no further action and no that comes before this body. This meeting is adjourned.